It's a great honor and a privilege to be today amongst the other Tamimim from Lubavitcher Yeshiva here in New York. And when I was a student, I also went to Lubavitcher Yeshiva here in New York. So I really feel that this is part of my alma mater, my connection with the school. Especially have my son Yeshua here. So it's a continuation of one generation to the next generation. There's a famous story that the Rebbe writes in Hayoim Yoim, and throughout the years, the Rebbe spoke about it in the Likutei Sichos, and that is the famous story how the Rebbe Rashab, on his birthday, when he was 4 or 5 years old, came into his grandfather's office at Tzemach Tzedek, and he began to cry. And the Tzemach Tzedek said to his grandson, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Zaidi, I'm crying because I just learned in the Torah how it says that Hashem revealed himself to Avraham. And my question is, how come Hashem does not reveal himself to us?" And that's why he was crying. And the Rebbe over the years spoke many times on this story, and he gave many, many lessons of the story. But one very important lesson to all of us today is that each one of us, even at the age of 4 and 5 years old, what should be our desires? What should be our wants? What should we cry about? Not candy, not iPhones, not iPads, but the desire of every chassid in Tomchei Tamimim, the desire of every chassid in a Lubavitcher Yeshiva should be, why is it that Hashem does not reveal himself to us? And therefore, on a day when we celebrate the Rebbe Rashab, his birthday, his life, his legacy, it's a time that we reflect on ourselves and say, what is important in life? And am I really crying why Hashem has not revealed himself to me? And to this, we know the story that the Tzemach Tzedek answered, that a Yid, a tzaddik, at 99 years old, who was willing to undergo a major operation, who is willing to fulfill the mitzvah of milah, he is deserving that Hashem should truly reveal himself to him. And what that means to us is as follows. You know, sometimes we get on a test 99%, 100%. We think we're perfect. Says the Tzemach Tzedek, even when you get a 99 or 100, if you want to be perfect, you have to be willing to have mesiras nefesh. You have to be willing to give yourself over totally to Hashem. You're never too old. You're never too smart. You always have to grow in learning. There's a famous story that the Rebbe also brings down in the Likutei Sichos about the Rebbe Rashab and his brother the Razah. And it's important to note that one of the things that the Rebbe Rashab is famous for is for establishing the yeshiva. Our yeshiva that we're in, which is Tomchei Tamimim, Hakhel Tamimim, Lubavitcher Yeshiva here, or in California, or anywhere in the world today where Lubavitcher students come together, this was really inaugurated by the Rebbe Rashab. Did you know that the Rebbe did not have a yeshiva with little students? The Middle Rebbe did not have a yeshiva with little students. The Tzemach Tzedek didn't have. The Rebbe Marash didn't have. The Rebbe Rashab was the first one to get permission from all the previous Rebbes to start a special yeshiva for us. So we are really his students. So the story is told that once a man came into the Rebbe Rashab and he was crying. He had a big problem. And he asked for a bracha from the Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab said, "I'm sorry, I cannot help you." And the man left the Rebbe Rashab's room. And he was standing and crying terribly in the hallway. And the Rebbe Rashab's brother, the Razah, saw him crying. And he walked over to him and he asked him, "Why are you crying?" And he told him the whole story. And the Razah, who was the Rebbe Rashab's older brother, came back into the office and said, "How you talking? I don't understand. A man comes to you for a bracha and you don't help him." And it says that the Rebbe Rashab took out his gartel and he put it on. He said, "Send him back into my room." And the man came back into the room of the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab blessed him with that bracha that he wanted. And the Rebbe said that the bracha was mekuyim, that the blessing was fulfilled. And then the Rebbe went on to ask a question. I don't understand, says the Rebbe. On one hand, if the Rebbe Rashab was truly a Rebbe, so why didn't he give a bracha right away? And if he couldn't give a bracha, how come now he changed his mind after the Razah came and asked him to give a bracha? And the Rebbe said as follows, that the bracha was the same, but the person wasn't a keli, he was not a vessel for the bracha. Once he left the Rebbe Rashab's room and he began to cry, and he did tshuva, and he changed himself, he became a vessel for the Rebbe Rashab's bracha. My dear students, we have to realize that we are in the Rebbe Rashab's yeshiva, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's yeshiva, and our Rebbe's yeshiva. And the Rebbes are giving us everyday brachas. They're giving us tremendous potential to accomplish everything we have to accomplish. Sometimes you say, how come I don't have success in my learning? How come I'm not doing well in school? Maybe I'm not getting along with my friends. And the answer is you have all the brachas you need. Sometimes maybe we are not a keli. Maybe we're not a vessel. And how do you become a vessel? Maybe you have to go to mikvah in the morning before you daven. Maybe you have to give more tzedakah before you daven. Maybe you have to do a little more chassidus. Each one of us should go to our mashpia and ask our mashpia, why are we not a vessel, a keli for Hashem's bracha? But the brachas are there. And this leads me to another very important topic, and that is the topic of mikvah. One of the amazing accomplishments and revolutionary breakthroughs that the Rebbe Rashab accomplished was the famous Rebbe Rashab's mikvah, which we call a bur agabi bur or mikvah agabi mikvah. And it's a very complicated concept, and your Rebbes will explain it to you on Mitzvah Hashem. And when you get older and you'll learn dayanis, you'll learn all of these concepts pertaining to the mikvah. What's important to note is that we have a very, very special mikvah, which is known as the Rebbe Rashab's mikvah, the highest quality of kashrus. And Chassidim, we pride ourselves that we don't only go to mikvah like the rest of the world, maybe before Yom Kippur, but a chassid not only goes Friday afternoon, and a chassid not only goes Shabbos morning, but a chassid has to go every single day to mikvah. When you go to mikvah every day, the Frierdiker Rebbe says it sharpens your mind and it opens up your heart to be able to learn better and to be a better chassid. I want to tell you two interesting stories about mikvah. First of all, they say when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to Israel, so the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, saw him and he said, "Da geht the Leichem HaKadosh. Here goes the holy warrior." The Frierdiker Rebbe was famous. He was a hero throughout the entire world because he fought against communism. But this Rabbi Sonnenfeld, was not a chassid, but he went every day to mikveh. And when one of his colleagues, who was a Litvish Rosh Yeshiva, said to him, "You go to mikveh? You're not a chassid. Why are you going to mikveh?" He said, "I'll tell you why I go to mikveh." And listen to this very, very carefully. He said, the Gemara says that if a person wants to convert to Judaism, what do you have to do? Who knows? What do you have to do to become a Yid if you're not born a Yid? One thing is going to mikveh, correct. What else do you have to do? You have to have a bris, correct. What else? The third thing you have to do, you have to accept upon yourself the whole Torah, all Taryag mitzvahs. So let's say a person accepted upon himself all Taryag mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs of the Torah, and he made God his God. He denies all other gods, number one. Number two, he has a bris, a circumcision, like Avraham Avinu at 99 years old, he has a bris. And then he didn't go to mikveh yet. Is he Jewish? Is he Jewish? No, he's not Jewish. He's not 2/3 Jewish, right? He's not Jewish at all. So Rabbi Sonnenfeld said, look, if a person who wants to convert and he already did the bris and he accepted upon himself the whole Torah, but he didn't go to mikveh yet, he's not a Yid. And then he goes to mikveh and the mikveh transforms him from a goy to a Yid. Can you imagine what the mikveh can do for us? Someone already who is a Yid, and now we go to mikveh. how the mikveh can truly transform us from impurity to holiness and to higher and higher levels. And this is why I went to mikveh every day. And I want to say a personal story from my family. On one hand, on my Raskin side, on the Lane side, we go back all the way to the Alter Rebbe. On my mother's side, which is the Hech side, Rabbi Jacob J. Hech was my Zayda. So his grandfather's grandfather had a mikveh here in Brownsville. And the story is that the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he came to America for the first time, the Chassidim in Brownsville wanted him to say a maimer. They wanted him to fabring, and he said, I need to go to a mikveh. He said, who runs the mikveh here? And he said, Hersh Melech Hecht runs the mikveh here. He says, fine, tell him I want to go to the mikveh. And my Zayda prepared the mikveh beautifully. He put down towels on the floor like a red carpet. And he gave him a nice fluffy towel. And he gave a $5 silver bill. And he put it into the towel and gave it to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he went to the mikveh. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came out of the mikveh, he took a $5 silver bill, which is worth a lot of money today, a few $100s, and he gave it to my grandfather for the use of the mikveh. And my Zayda Hersh Melech said, I don't want to take the money from the Rebbe. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said to him, Geld nimmst du nicht, aber a bracha nimmst du, yeah? Do you take a bracha from a Rebbe? He said, of course. He said, if that is the case, I bless you. I give you a bracha that all of your grandchildren should become my Chassidim. That was the bracha he gave him. So we see here the power of a mikveh. The power of the mikveh is that all your grandchildren should become my Chassidim. If you want your grandchildren to still be Chassidim, and of course they will be, we got to go to mikveh. That's the power of a mikveh. And this is what the Rebbe Rashab accomplished by creating this new mikveh to bring new holiness into the mikveh. And we as Chassidim that go to mikveh, we are assured that we're going to have this greater level of purity and holiness, and they will have children and grandchildren who will continue to be Chassidim of the Rebbe. I'm sure you know this, right? That each one of you was handpicked. You know that? When the Rebbe Rashab established Tomchei Temimim, he chose the neshamis of every single Talmud who would be in his yeshiva until the end of time, until the coming of Mashiach. So therefore, each one of you is handpicked. Each one of you was chosen by the Rebbe Rashab himself. For what reason? As we know, the reason that he established the yeshiva of Tomchei Temimim is because he said, we are the Chayolei Beis David. We are the soldiers of the house of King David, of David HaMelech. And our job is one thing, Lahavi es Mashiach, to bring about Mashiach. That's our job. And therefore, we have this responsibility, we have this obligation, especially this year. What's special about this year? Who knows? Hakhel, correct. This is a year of Hakhel. And we know that, what is the mitzvah of Hakhel? The Rebbe said it's the whole year, right? And who has to come to Hakhel? Only the boys? Only the men? Or even the babies? Also the babies. Anoshim v'noshim v'taf. The Rebbe says in a letter that each one of us has in our mind and in our heart Anoshim, Anoshim, and Taf. What does that mean? How do we have a man and a woman and a child in us? So the Rebbe said the idea of a man is that if he goes into the outside world, he conquers the world. In other words, it's very easy to sit over here in yeshiva and be a good boy and to be a Talmud Chacham and a Chassid. But how do you act when you go outside in the street? That is the meaning of being a man, to conquer the world. Or in the street, you're very good. You make sure you have your hat on perfectly and your tzitzis are sticking out perfectly and your yarmulke is exactly in the right angle. But then when you go home, already no one's looking. You throw your hat off, you throw your jacket off, and then you're disrespectful to your father or mother, and then you're not nice to your younger brother or sister. The idea of Nashim is how you act in the home. And then you have Taf. Taf is the baby. What's a baby? A baby knows he's a baby. He knows he needs his tati and mommy to give him food and to raise him. And he knows he's not so smart. He knows he has to still learn. Everybody over here probably thinks you know everything, right? No. Nobody. I don't know everything and you don't know everything. And nobody knows everything. We have to be like a Taf. We have to be like a baby, like a child, to know that we still have to learn more things. I want to end off with one amazing story. But before that, to tell you that the Rebbe said that the name of the Rebbe Rashab, what was his name? You know? Shalom Tovber. The Rebbe said all of these three names represent Mashiach. How? How does Shalom Tovber represent Mashiach? Who knows? Says the Rebbe like this, that Shalom is peace. When is the world going to experience the ultimate peace? When Mashiach comes. Dov represents an animal that has a lot of basar, a lot of meat. And we know on Yom Tif, you're supposed to have meat. When Mashiach comes, every day is going to be a Yom Tif. We're going to have a lot of meat. And then bear is the word for beer or dov in Yiddish, which is targum, a translation. And Alter Rebbe says when you translate a language from Hebrew into another language, that new language represents birur hatachtoin, to elevate the physical. And that's why when a Yid and the Shluchim go to all the countries of the world, and they don't only talk Lashon HaKodesh, and they don't only talk Yiddish, but they talk English and Chinese and French and Spanish and Yinglish and all these languages. By doing that, they're elevating the world and transforming the world for the coming of Mashiach. And now I want to end off with one very interesting story. And that is every day we're supposed to live with Mashiach. As the Rebbe says, Lahavi Yimois HaMashiach. That everything we do, we have to ask ourselves, when I do this, am I bringing Mashiach or not? Am I bringing Mashiach closer or farther? That's the question we have to ask ourselves every time we do something. So I want to tell you an amazing story to show what it means to be living with Mashiach. I have a congregant in my shul, and his name is Mitch. And this guy, Mitch, when I had my second boy, when my wife was about to give birth to my second boy, so I asked Mitch to come over to my house to babysit my little first boy, Yankel, who was a year old, and he was sleeping in the crib. And I said to Mitch, I got to go to the hospital. My new baby's about to come. I need a babysitter in Brooklyn Heights. And Yankel's sleeping. He's going to sleep the whole night. Don't worry. You come over and just hang out until we come back. It was a Thursday night. And we ran to the hospital. And nothing happened. We came back. It was a false alarm. The baby never came out. But then, Baruch Hashem, Friday night, 12 o'clock at night after Suda Shabbos, all of a sudden, my wife decides now the baby's coming. So I can't pick up the phone, even though maybe I could pick up the phone, but I ran over to Mitch's house. I was living on the second floor in a brownstone. And I put my hands together and I say, Mitch, get up, Mitch, get up. He's sleeping, after having, gefilte fish and chicken and challah and salad and desserts and wine. He was sleeping like this. So I'm screaming, Mitch, get up, Mitch, get up. His wife hears it, says, Mitch, the rabbi's outside, the rabbi's outside. So Mitch says, yeah, so buzz him in, buzz him in. She says, Mitch, I can't buzz him in, it's Shabbos. It's Shabbos. So he gets up, he washes the glass. He opens the window, goes, Rabbi, what do you want? I said, Mitch, it's the real thing. It's the real thing. He says, what? Mashiach is coming. You get the story? If I wake you up tonight in the middle of the night, I say it's the real thing. What are you going to say? Mashiach is coming? Then you know you're living with Mashiach. But if it's the real thing, it's the real thing what? You bought me the iPhone? You bought me the iPad? Then it's not the real thing. And it's interesting that they woke him up in the middle of the night. He says, ring, Ring him in, buzz him in. He forgot it was Shabbos. But all of a sudden, we said to him, it's the real thing. He says, what? Mashiach is coming. And that is the way we have to live every single day. And this is the message to us from the Rebbe Rashab, that we are Chassidim of the Rebbe Rashab. And our job is to bring about the coming of Mashiach. And we do this by davening and learning and going to Mikvah and acting in the way Chassidim should act, and to give it an additional push and an additional prayer and additional betachin that Mashiach is coming mamish now in this year of Hakhel. So we hope and pray that in this year of Hakhel, when the king has to read from the Torah, we will be zoche that the Melech HaMashiach himself will gather in all the Jewish people, Anoshim, the Noshim, the Taf, to the third base of Mikdash, with the coming of Mashiach, take off from Miyad Mamish. Thank you.